The drought discussion continues on, but this winter has already brought a significant amount of snow, and prices on equipment are still going up. This is the Cherish Each Moment podcast. Well. I've dusted off the old podcast equipment. I've found all the missing cables that have been put away for a while, and I am so excited to get back behind the microphone here. It's been too long. There's so much to talk about. I've got at least 2 episodes already planned here, including this one, and I just can't wait to get started here. For anyone watching on the YouTube channel, you may have noticed that there has been a change made in my recording setup here. I've moved to a new room in the house and pretty much have my own office at this point, which is very exciting. I've been working in here for a few months now. Before, I was sharing our bonus room above the garage with my kids' playroom. Not ideal, but I was a bit further away from all the action and the noise that goes on around the house than I am now. So there are pros and cons. At least here I have my own space and I can actually put my things in here, and I have a door, a special door lock here that has fingerprint access that only my wife and I can get in here. We've actually been hiding the Christmas presents in here. So that's worked out really nicely. I just need to continue to move in and fill out the space and just kind of settle in. I've got plans for this room as far as decor goes and organization and things. I want to kind of flesh out the background here for the podcast, make it look nice. I just need to find some extra time to get it done. So stick around, stay tuned. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you head over to YouTube and type in the Cherish Each Moment podcast, and you can see how things evolve over time. Winter is definitely upon us here. As tough as it is for me to not be out working in the lawn or even seeing the lawn right now, it is so good for us to be getting a decent amount of snow. The mountains are getting an above average amount of snow too, which is where it really counts. National Weather Service is reporting snowpack levels are significantly above average. I think we're at 152% right now. And it's only middle of December. So we've still got the rest of December, January, February, and even into March. We're not unaccustomed to seeing snow. So this is great news, especially given our current drought situation. And I realize that one good snow season isn't going to fix the problem, but this certainly will help. And hopefully we will continue to see above average snowfall for the rest of the season. Speaking of drought and water conservation, a hot topic around here if you haven't been listening. This year I'm happy to report that I have been seeing more educational content locally about being more conservative. But unfortunately, it's not all agreeable to me. I'll explain. I got an email from a subscriber, and he emailed me with a link to a local city group post with some pretty nice-looking slides with suggestions for, quote, drought training a lawn. The person who emailed me wanted to just get my thoughts on the information in these slides, see what I think, and what my personal recommendations and opinions were. I told him that I try to avoid commenting in public forums like that because it it just creates unnecessary drama that I just don't have time for. People who really want to learn will reach out, and I'm more than happy to help and prefer helping, actually, in a more one-on-one situation. So if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm really happy to help, happy to have a conversation through email or direct message on social media. You can email me at jimmy@jimmylewismose.com, and you can find me on all major social media platforms as well. Feel free to reach out. Would love to hear from you. So here are my responses to some of these points made in these slides here. The slide deck mentions mowing every 2 weeks or longer to develop roots. And to be honest, that's really not quite how it works, especially with Kentucky bluegrass. And primarily that's going to be what we're talking about here is Kentucky bluegrass. Everybody here has Kentucky bluegrass, and more often than not, there's perennial ryegrass mixed in. But the dominant turf type here is Kentucky bluegrass. So keep that in mind. So the slide says mowing bluegrass more regularly. The slide says mowing every 2 weeks or longer helps develop roots. I disagree with that. Mowing bluegrass more regularly encourages root growth. And I would say really mowing any type of grass like that allows for more root growth. So keep that in mind. The more you mow, you're gonna force the roots to grow deeper because you're cutting off all of the energy the grass plant would normally spend growing in an upward direction. It's going to take all of that energy. And in the case of bluegrass, not only are the roots going to continue to grow deeper, but the rhizomes are going to spread laterally throughout the lawn, and it's going to thicken up your lawn, make it much more dense, make it much stronger. And mowing every 2 weeks will more often than not break the 1/3 rule, especially if you're fertilizing or if you have a lawn care company fertilizing for you. And that's just going to lead to issues. So if you follow me and you follow in my advice and my strategies, I suggest mowing twice a week. If you're not in the habit of mowing weekly, I would start there. Get in the habit of mowing weekly. And once you get settled into mowing weekly, find a little bit of time one night during the week and mow again. You'll be surprised. You'll see a difference, and it will only benefit things. So if we want to develop strong roots, one thing we can do is to mow more often. And there's other things you can do as well, and we'll talk about that in a second. But think about it. If you're constantly cutting off the grass's ability to grow upward, it's going to spend its energy growing down. And like I said, in the case of bluegrass, it's going to want to grow laterally too, which I think is one of Kentucky bluegrass's best qualities, is its ability to spread and repair itself. Bluegrass is quite resilient, and I think we forget that, and I think we kind of take that for granted up here. And it's really surprising to see how well bluegrass can recover when you stress it out on purpose or when you stress it out even on accident. I've had some pretty fascinating experiences here, even over just this past year, seeing bluegrass recover. And I've done some video on that and would encourage you to check that out. There are slides here about watering deep and cycle soaking during watering sessions. I think those are great, and I agree with those 100%. That right there, that deep and infrequent watering is going to be what helps the lawn develop deeper, stronger root systems. That's going to be a major factor for strong roots. What I don't agree with in these slides, and this is a very common thing that you see on any kind of post from local government or whoever about water conservation and sprinklers and things, and you'll see that everybody kind of has a similar trend where they suggest watering for only 20 minutes or 40 minutes at a time, twice a week or once a week, or when they define what an actual watering is. When you run your sprinklers, they tell you that, we get restrictions, especially throughout the summer months, and they tell you can water your lawn, for example, 3 times a week, and they define a watering as 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, but they haven't a specific amount of time designated as the definition of a watering, if that makes sense. I don't agree with that. I understand that grass needs a certain amount of water during the period of a week in order to maintain its green and lush condition and to be in a healthy state, in an ideal state. And as many of you know, that is about 1 inch of water per week. And that's even in hot conditions, peak summer conditions, 100 degrees. You can still get away with 1 inch of water per week and have a green lawn. And you can even do that cut at 1 inch. I do it every year. So when I see these 15 minutes or 20 minutes, however long these recommendations are, I can't get on board with that, because 15 minutes for me could mean something completely different than 15 minutes for my next door neighbor. It just depends. There's so many different variables here. You have to take into consideration what kind of sprinklers you have and what their spray pattern is. And you have to actually measure and time how long it takes for those sprinklers to put down a 1/2 inch of water. Figure out how long it takes to get a 1/2 inch of water, and then program your sprinkler controller to run that amount of time for that given zone twice a week. That's it. It's that simple. And I think if most people did just that, we would conserve a heck of a lot of water. Pretty easy. But it's just the education on that. And we'll talk about that too. The slides also recommend smart sprinkler controllers, and I'm a big believer in those. I personally believe smart sprinkler controllers should be standardized, especially in these drought-stricken states like here in Utah. I think everybody should be required to have a smart sprinkler controller. There's already rebates available from the state, from the water district, from the local utilities. If you get a smart sprinkler controller, then you get a rebate, and you pretty much get them for half off, sometimes even more. It just really depends on what brand you choose to go with, but there's so many on the market today now that you can get them for pretty cheap. I think the Wise sprinkler controller that I've done a video review on, I think you can get that for like $50. And that's a no-brainer. And it comes with all of the features that everything else does. It comes with rain skips and weather controls and all the things that you would need to do your part to conserve water and still maintain a nice looking lawn that you can enjoy and make memories with your family and friends. So as far as how long to water, when it comes to these smart sprinkler controllers, my Ratio has a feature where it has skips or seasonal adjustments. I have the skips for rain, and I have thresholds for wind and things like that set in the settings. But as far as seasonal adjustments go, I leave those alone. I don't let the controller change how long each zone will water. That stays consistent throughout the whole year. I know how long it takes to get a 1/2 inch of water, and that's what I want it to be, so I leave that alone. But like I said, I think everyone should invest in a smart sprinkler controller, especially if they're serious about water conservation. I think that's the first step. And I think that they should continue to offer incentives around that for sure. As far as when to water, there are some slides there about when specifically to water. And they recommend early morning, which is great. I agree with that. Here, the problem is the infrastructure. Here in Utah, most everyone shares a secondary irrigation supply infrastructure. So if everyone is watering at the same time in the early morning, you lose pressure. The pressure decreases. And I've even had days here where I've gone outside early in the morning when my sprinklers are running before leaving for work and just kind of checking on things. And I'll go outside and look at the sprinklers, and they're not even coming out of the ground. I can see a very small stream coming out of the drain of the top of the sprinkler, but there is just not enough pressure to even push the heads out of the ground because other people are watering at the same time. Too many other people are watering at the same time. So you have to adjust. And so lucky for us here in Utah, it's a very dry climate. We are in the desert. And because of that, we are really not very susceptible to fungus issues or anything like that. It's not very common, which is nice. But if you're watering every day like a lot of people are, then you will see fungal issues. You will see things like that. But if you're watering infrequently like you're supposed to, then you really don't have to worry about that. So for me, when it comes to watering, I have made adjustments on my schedule as to when I start watering so that I don't typically have any issues with pressure. So I pay attention to what days my neighbors are watering in my general area, and I make sure that I don't water on those days. Thankfully, most of my neighbors don't water every day. Some do, which is pretty interesting and kind of hard to see, but it is what it is. But all it takes is a little bit of adaptation, at least in my experience. You can make it work. The slides reassure that it's okay for the lawn to go dormant in the summer, which it is. It's totally fine. It's nothing to freak out about. However, what most people don't understand is that a dormant lawn still requires water. And I would say at least a quarter inch of water per week is required to keep a dormant lawn in a dormant state. And sometimes, depending on the years and depending on the weather patterns, we could get that from rain, which is great. Free water. Take free water anytime. But if we don't give the lawn any water while it's in a dormant state, you could lose it and it could die. So we just have to keep that in mind, especially when it gets super hot. Like I said, I was able to keep my grass, at least my front yard, I keep it cut at 1 inch. I was able to keep it green last summer while staying within my water restrictions, even during the 100-degree days. Green, stripes, looks fantastic. And I intend to do that going forward because I know that I'm being conscious about conserving water and doing my part with preparing the lawn for that and using nutrients and products that will help it through. And to go with that, it's more than just watering that helps the lawn survive in the summer. So we'll talk about that another time, and I've talked about that before. I've done videos on that. You're more than welcome to go check those out on my YouTube channel and refresh on that, especially coming towards the end of next spring. Those are great videos to go back and revisit. I might even make new ones. Here's something interesting. The slides suggest overseeding with fescue, which I think is complete overkill. Overseeding with fescue is overkill. Fescue is extremely uncommon here because we are far enough north, it's just not necessary. We don't need a grass that hardy. In fact, the only fescue I ever see around here is invasive clumping fescue patches that show up randomly in lawns. Finally, the slide suggests skipping fertilizer for the whole year. Yes, I saved the craziest suggestion for last. This is just not great advice. Not fertilizing the lawn is not feeding it, and that's starving it of the nutrients that it needs to survive, especially during the summer months. Potassium helps plants with moisture uptake and retention, as well as stress tolerance. Phosphorus helps with root growth, and there's other micronutrients as well that play into that. Grass is very much similar to our bodies. Simply put, without proper nutrition and water, it will struggle to survive. So, just to kind of put a bow on this, I'm happy to see more education circulating online. But I hope that just because someone posts some nice slides or funny memes or what look to be enticing information, that you take that information with a grain of salt. A good chunk of the information I saw in these particular slides was good and helpful and agreeable. But some of it, as you can tell, was just not all what I would recommend. So if you want to go all out and conserve all the water possible and you don't like taking care of the lawn anyways, then swap it out for a landscape that requires little to no maintenance or water. Not a big deal. And now is a great time to do that because a lot of cities are starting to incentivize it. So, something to think about. I had a chance to watch the playback of a part of my city council's recent meeting this year. They had a segment on their agenda discussing the water situation and what the recommendations were and things like that. Really interesting to kind of listen in on those things, and I just like to kind of stay informed. I learned a lot about how that water is moved from the reservoirs up in the mountains and down the rivers in the canyon, down into the valley where they have distribution systems set up. Pretty interesting stuff. I'd like to learn a lot more about that and kind of see more behind the scenes in the future if possible. I'll have to reach out and see who I can get in touch with and see what I can arrange there. One thing that stood out to me is that the city wants to be more educationally minded, especially towards residents who are already overusing from the pressurized irrigation system. Every home after, I think, 2014 in my city is metered. And the city can tell from those meters who's drawing more water. And based on what I heard from this council meeting, there were people in late March and early April who were already watering daily from that pressurized irrigation system. That's just crazy. We haven't even hit 60-degree high temperatures, and people are already watering daily. So when it comes to situations like that, the city goes and is going to be educating them and trying to encourage them to dial it back, which dial it back they need to. I have a feeling of wanting to be more involved in that education. Obviously, I'm doing what I can, putting out content as much as possible. I'm trying to tag it for Utah so that locals can see that, and I can be of help if possible there. For some reason, I'm just a bit hesitant about being more involved. I feel like I could provide some insight and information from my experiences that could be helpful to people. But I also want to be careful about not having any kind of target on my back where people become super critical about my own use of water and things like that. I've said before that I stay within my watering restrictions, which was no more than twice a week last year. But even still, I always just have that thought in the back of my mind on my watering days that people are irritated that I'm watering. I don't know why. It's just what goes on in my head. It would be cool to be involved, but at the same time, it's sometimes better just to do your thing and kind of mind your own business, you know? What do you think I should do? Reach out. Let me know. Should also just wrap up this segment and mention for the second straight year, the governor officially declared a state of emergency regarding the drought conditions here. So 2 years in a row. And just want to kind of briefly explain what that means. This declaration activates the Drought Response Committee and triggers increased monitoring and reporting. It also allows drought-affected communities, ag producers, and others to report unmet needs and work towards solutions. So in a nutshell, the government is recognizing officially again the severity of the drought issue and saying they're going to monitor, in this case, being the second year, they're going to continue to monitor it. And then they also passed a bill in the Utah legislature this year that mandates that each city install water meters at each home by 2030. And as I understand it, there are also incentives in place for cities that move on this even earlier. And as I've mentioned before, my secondary system is not currently metered, so it's just a matter of time before that happens. I just hope the process isn't too invasive. Well, with winter weather here for all of us up north, I think it's appropriate to talk just for a few minutes about snow and its potential effects on the lawn. Like most things, there are both pros and cons, and I'll go over one major pro and one potential con for now. The pro is that the snow acts as an insulator for the lawn, and it maintains temperature and protects the lawn from other harsh threats from the elements like cold winds. Anytime my lawn is exposed during periods of extreme cold without any snow on it, the tips get burned pretty easy. Not sure that has any effect on how the lawn bounces back in the spring, but I'm sure it's probably a negative. If the tips are burned, it kind of prevents the lawn's ability to photosynthesize, to take in the sun and do its thing. The nice thing is that initial application of fertilizer will kind of push that out and you mow it off and no worries. One potential con of the snow on the lawn, especially deep, heavy snow for a long period of time, is snow mold. Snow mold is unsightly, but both preventable and treatable. Before the snow season, you can apply a preventative application of a fungicide to help avoid any snow mold from forming. The snow mold that has appeared in my front lawn in the past went away rather quickly without any treatment, but it is treatable. I've shared this recently on other social media platforms, but the other day I happened to drive past a lady shoveling all the snow off of her front lawn. Never seen anything like that before. I know some people like to clear a small area in the backyard. My dad does this. I think he does it for the dog. But I've never seen anyone shovel the snow off the entire lawn like this. I should have stopped and asked her about it. I kind of actually regret not doing that. Maybe next time. Please don't do that. Leave the snow on the grass. Don't risk further damage to the lawn for no reason. At this time of the year, most everybody's lawns are pretty yellow and dormant. No one's really driving around the neighborhood looking at lawns. It's not on people's minds. Nobody really wants to see it. Unless you have a legitimate reason for taking the time and effort to shovel the snow off the entire lawn, which I would really be curious to know if you did. Just don't. I don't know. I don't understand. There's so much more damage that could potentially be done by clearing all the snow off your lawn. When you walk on frozen grass, you are pretty much breaking the crown of the grass and damaging it. Like I said, when you remove or when you don't have snow insulating the lawn or protecting the lawn, you get tip burn, and it's more exposed to the elements. It's more exposed to the freezing cold nights. If the wind is blowing at night, it's even colder. And that wind can just be sharp and cold. Even just a slight breeze when it's below freezing outside. It's cold. So let the snow take care of the lawn for you. Just leave it there. Leave it there. End rant. Last thing I want to talk about is the price increases, particularly in the equipment market. And I think we're all aware of that. I see posts about this on social media all the time. And I put out a video recently about the Time Master from Toro, and the comments section. That's all I'm going to say. The comments section. We could spend an entire additional segment here on price increases everywhere else, like on fertilizer and grass seed. But for now, I think it's good to take some time and just talk about the equipment. To be honest, in my opinion, inflation coupled with supply issues for manufacturers is probably going to hurt sales for these companies. They're going to feel it. As much as it hurts us to even think about paying these higher prices, which I'm telling you now, most people are just not going to do it. It's going to hurt the companies too, because they're not going to see the profits that they're used to seeing. And they're going to see it the most in the homeowner market, unfortunately. Like I said, I made a video about this, about the big price increase on Toro's Time Master. If you didn't see that, the short version of that story is when I bought my Time Master in 2019, I bought it for $999 plus tax. When I made that video, it was retailing for $1,499, and that was just a couple months ago. That was right before I left for the Equip Expo in October. So early October, it was retailing for $1,499. Today, when you go to Home Depot's website, that same Toro Time Master is listed for $1,599. And no, I'm not goofing and telling you the price on the electric start option. There's always been two options when you buy the Toro Time Master. You can get it with or without electric start, and the option for electric start has generally always been an additional $100. So now that model is coming in at $1,699. Crazy. This week, Owlet Mowers made a post on their U.S. Instagram page. At least that's where I got this information from, that they are going to be raising prices as well. Here's what the caption on their post says. Quote, "Big price increases coming, ! Order your mower and or cartridges at current 2022 prices before year ends, ! We apologize in advance, but starting January 1st, 2023, we'll be implementing significant price increases across all our units and cartridges, ! Global raw good costs have massively increased these past couple of years, and unfortunately, we have to pass these on, ! Please be aware that pricing will be going up, but around 25 to 30%, ! In parentheses, depending on the product, ! We strongly advise getting your mower and or cartridges before the end of the year to beat this increase, ! Get yours while stocks last, ! I appreciate this transparency, but man, if you've ever priced an Owlet mower, you already know they are significantly priced homeowner real mowers. Now you know you can expect to see the price go up 25 to 30% next year. So, If you're in the market for an outlet reel mower, get it now. Because now, if you think about it, they're on sale. They're 25 to 30% off right now. If you wait, you're going to be paying 25 to 30% more. And what bothers me the most about these price increases we're seeing is that we as consumers are not benefiting at all from it. We are the ones eating the cost without even the slightest new feature. Let's go back to Owlet's post here. Global raw good costs have massively increased these past couple of years, and unfortunately, we have to pass these on. Well, who are they passing it on to? The consumer. So the consumer has to eat this, which stinks. And what bothers me the most is that we're getting the same product at a higher cost. The specs for the Toro Time Master haven't changed since I purchased mine in 2019. If you buy a brand new Time Master today for $1,600, you're getting the exact same mower I have at a 62% premium. And I imagine it will be the same case for Owlet as well. So yeah, I predict less people will be buying new equipment for a while, especially homeowners, the DIY market. The last couple of years, at least for my family, have stretched the budget with gas prices, grocery prices, and other general costs of living. It's going to take extra time to save up for those new lawnmowers. And it's not just the Time Master or the Owlet. You're going to see this across the board. It's going to affect string trimmers. It's going to affect all equipment. And if you're interested in transitioning to battery-powered equipment, the price is going to be even higher for you. Think about the 60-volt Time Master that's coming out this spring. You think $1,600 is expensive for a Time Master with gas, you're going to be in around the neighborhood of $23.99 for the battery-powered Time Master. So buckle up, because we are getting into a pretty interesting time period as far as pricing goes on equipment, and it'll be kind of interesting to see how it turns out for people. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on this. If you're interested in purchasing new equipment here in the next year or so, let me kind of know what your thought process is, how you're budgeting for it, all that stuff, and maybe we can talk about it in a future episode here on the podcast. That's going to wrap up this episode of the show. Thank you so much for listening. Please consider subscribing to the show on whatever platform you choose to listen if you haven't already. Please also consider following me on all of my social media channels linked in the description. Until next time, see ya.